Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. We're going to wrap up in a very eventful week here with another huge news day on multiple fronts. Now, this hour we look at the coronavirus from several different angles. The spread of the virus triggering a major sell-off on Wall Street again, with trillions of dollars evaporating just this week. A markets expert will join us to explain how bad this all could get. We will also show you why the administration is taking a ton of heat over its response to the virus, I believe, heat that is warranted. Critics are saying that the president is not on the same page with the health officials, the administration was not prepared for this, and more. Tonight, we also look at the race for the White House and show you why the next several days could determine who will take on Donald Trump come November. And also, former Obama Chief of Staff and Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel. He'll join us to discuss his new book about how mayors are having the biggest impact, he claims, in the world. But we begin tonight here with the coronavirus and how it's continuing to spread across the globe. Today, a wake-up call from the World Health Organization, raising the global risk of the virus from high to now very high, but stopping short of calling it a pandemic.
We do not see evidence as yet that the virus is spreading freely in communities. As long as that's the case, we still have a chance of containing this virus.
This afternoon, the Solano County Public Health Administrator confirming that the county has a new confirmed novel coronavirus case. That person was under quarantine at Travis Air Force Base. They are asymptomatic and now at home in Solano County under self-quarantine. In California, authorities scouring this community to find out if this virus could have spread after a Solano County woman showed up to a local hospital with flu-like symptoms. She was then placed onto a ventilator but not tested for the virus until 4 days later.
At this point, we don't know where the patient was exposed.
On Capitol Hill, more questions following a whistleblower complaint that federal employees interacting with quarantined Americans at Travis and March Air Force bases allegedly worked without proper training or even proper protective gear.
There were several concerns that we had. The whistleblower issue remains unresolved, at least for Travis Air Force Base and perhaps for others.
Tonight, we are facing some tough realities, and I believe come November, we could be staring at some unappealing options. This hour, we will leave no doubt here that the lack of foresight, competency, distrust of science, and aversion to transparency have made us not only more vulnerable to a possible pandemic, but give us little faith that this administration can either be believed or trusted to do what governments are put in place to do, and that is to protect its people. After more than 3 years of countless lies and serial gutting of apolitical institutions designed to protect we the people, our rule of law and our national interest also been battered, this health crisis is finally crystallizing for many Americans what I and others have warned since Trump took the oath of office and begun his assault on our Constitution and the very framework of our government. One political cowardice from his party and an assault on our justice system led by his own attorney general leads to the erasing of checks and balances. We get this. Every day that our norms get perverted a little more, every day that the bedrocks of democracy that our founding fathers left us get chipped away, yet again, we get this. Every day that the things that we counted on to be bigger than one madman are not enough to say enough, we get this. Donald Trump is, of course, not to blame for the coronavirus. Of course not. But when he decides to get in front of this country in prime time and ad-lib a national address to calm Americans with a medical fact and coordinated strategy, but instead, what does he do? He blames a Democratic debate for a historic sell-off on Wall Street. And instead of agreeing with the very CDC and NIH and alphabet soup of agencies that are on the same dais as him about the inevitable spread of the virus, he says, no worries, be happy. He says, hey, take a look at the charts that say I'm number one. Instead of putting a qualified professional to head up our national response, what do we get? He gives us Mike Pence, who wanted to pray the HIV away when he faced his biggest health challenge when he used to run Indiana. Instead of giving us transparency with the government scientific leaders, he's instead muzzled them, gone after, by the way, another whistleblower who talked about a possible health risk in California, and insisted instead he will approve, he personally, what we get to hear. Tell me that'll make you sleep better tonight. This fiasco, it is just the latest punctuation point to a presidency that is an exhausting exercise in corruption and incompetency masquerading as disruption. We are less safe as a nation. We are more divided as a country, and I shudder to think, after being caught but not convicted, what this man will do with 4 more years with no more elections to run after that. Now that brings me to our second unappealing focus tonight, his name Bernie Sanders. With Super Tuesday looming as a possible uppercut to his primary foes, the socialist senator from Vermont is seemingly a legitimate possibility as the impossible, an unserious alternative to an unserious president. Now listen, I know a lot of you might like Bernie Sanders and maybe his heart is in the right place, but his proposals are as impractical as the math that would finance them. He is the only nightmare alternative that could get beleaguered Democrats in purple districts across this country to consider the imaginable. Vote for Trump again. In what world does a multi-millionaire like Sanders call capitalist success stories immoral? Those were his words. In what alternative universe does a guy who never passed a meaningful piece of legislation in 30 years in Congress decide his first priority is to undo the greatest Democratic legislative achievement in the last 30 years, Obamacare? In what cruel joke does a guy who praised the Ayatollah and Castro and many more, as I'll show you this hour, and isn't even a Democrat, by the way, get to take the entire Democratic Party over a cliff with him in November? Listen, I agree. Certainly the last 3 years have exacerbated a situation where the middle class in this country is getting screwed. I agree. The 1% in this country have gotten every single break, and we need to make some changes. But to listen to Bernie Sanders, I hear echoes of what I heard in 2016. I hear us and them. I hear from him that everything's so simple, it'll be a snap. Where did we hear that before? Where did we hear that the other side is evil and we're going to get them? I'm sorry, I've seen this play before. It doesn't work. And now we have, seriously, with everything going on, one radical alternative versus, I don't know what you call this administration. We live in uncertain times, and we need serious choices to solve serious problems. I think I speak for most of us when I say we deserve better than these two. Okay, when we come back, Wall Street wrapping up one of its worst weeks ever as the coronavirus fears drive the market down by thousands of points. We're going to show you how the ripple effect could trigger a whole host of problems for the economy.